Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the POMM-cast. If you are watching this in video format, you might notice we are in a different spot. I've been hinting at hopefully moving locations, and I have finally done that. I actually did that like a month ago now, but October was a crazy month. I went on my first solo trip out to Las Vegas for EDC, and it was incredible. I have written several blog posts about that already, and you can find that on my website. I'll be putting all that information in the description of this episode. So you can just go there if you're interested in seeing all that content and reading about the experience and what I have been up to. But I still want to go back and talk about Scorpio season a little bit and the Ivy moon, which was the next month of the Celtic Tree calendar, as I have been doing for the past several months of this program, if you want to call it that. So let's just get right into it. We are going back now to beginning mid-October when we had the new moon and the Ivy moon came into play, and that represents buoyancy, resilience, healing, protection, and cooperation. So as that was building into the full moon, that peaked right around when Scorpio season started. So there's an association there. And then the Ivy moon lasted until beginning of November when we just had the past new moon, and we've already had the full moon in November. It just flew by. I'm just still mentally in Las Vegas, honestly. But that's why it's a good thing for me to go back and talk about this time of the year because I'm still kind of stuck there. So it's always good to go back and reflect. And these themes that were listed are a little random until you realize Scorpio is a water sign, and buoyancy, staying afloat, riding the waves, that is definitely a theme, in my opinion, for this time of year. And healing and protection, I took that as an internal thing where you really focus on healing your inner worlds, your internal dialogue, self-talk, self-worth, and making sure that your internal spaces are not out of control or out of balance so that you don't just get sucked in when something unexpected happens, which can happen during this time of year because things are changing. We are transitioning from fall into colder months, depending on where you live, but where I live, it is already freezing. So, yeah, I've been using this time not only to just reflect and gather insight on the experiences that I've had so that I can kind of apply that insight going forward and use, how that experience made me feel as motivation to keep going during this kind of honestly shitty time of year. So, here we are. And if you have not yet listened to the episode from September on Libra season in the Vine Moon, you can go ahead and do that. Because I really think that one sign to the next, there are a lot more similarities than we really give credit for. And I think Scorpio season is all about finding that balance just as much as, Libra and even Virgo before that. So, astrology for me is just always a great tool to help establish more self awareness and self control. So, that's what I tend to focus on when I look at these themes. But I always encourage you to do your own studying and see what you gather from people's different interpretations of it, what sticks out to you. Or if that's overwhelming, you could book a reading with me, and all that is going to be in the description as well. But didn't mean to detour there, but I think that's just worth mentioning. And continuing on, I feel like it doesn't hurt to just go back and look at what you have been building on over the past few months and see if that is actually working for you. Is it draining your energy to keep going on like this? Because if you're already drained now, it might be kind of difficult to establish a new system during this time of year where kind of I feel like I'm in hibernation mode, and it's hard to really like get going with a new routine or get something started. I know this time last year I really wanted to start this podcast and I really felt like I couldn't get a grasp on how to approach it and organize it until I did a bunch of other things like launch my website and have a better system for creating content and just not doing a bunch of filler stuff just to put content out there. That was a really big thing for me over the past year. And so all of these things have built up, and now I'm doing the podcast. And I was even able to take a month off and hop back into it and not lose momentum completely. So there you go. That's just one example of something I was kind of already subconsciously doing last year, and now I'm reflecting all the way back a year ago of when I was also starting to take astrology more seriously and did my first little astrology series. So this is not quite a rehashing of that because I went into a lot of detail about all the signs and their different archetypes. And with this podcast here, I'm kind of just doing it more authentically for myself and for how I use this stuff and practice it, and because I think it's pretty valuable for me at least, and I think other people could find it valuable. So yeah, there's my intention. I took inspired action on all of that, and I have been able to manifest a lot of things that I had been visualizing coming into reality. And that is actually going to be part of the next episode. So I won't get too carried away on that. But whatever system you're building to keep that in place, if it's working for you, after you've done the assessment and the inner work to find if you need to tweak something to have more of a balance of inputting energy and getting enough energy out of it to keep yourself going, that'll be the work that keeps you afloat through the challenges of Scorpio season. That's how I see it. And even though it's already passed, I don't think it's ever too late to reflect on how an experience impacted you and what emotional or energetic influences were acting on you in your inner worlds at the time. Recognizing how you responded to those stimuli will help your growth and your ability to handle transitional or challenging periods. overall. There's the little in conclusion, I would say. But you know, Scorpio season is a hard and emotionally charged time for many cultures as well, because there is common theme of passing from fall to winter, kind of things are dying. And so the passing of life to death is actually celebrated and honored in a lot of cultures. So I didn't do a big Samhain celebration this year because was still recovering from EDC, and I feel like that was just like a huge celebration of life, and it was also something that had been keeping me going through my grieving process after I lost my dog, and so it was all part of a ritual for me. I just did a little bit earlier than, you know, the calendar date, but you got to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room sometimes and do what works for you. And I will be getting more into that in the next episode with Sagittarius season as well. But yeah, so it doesn't matter how elaborate or involved your rituals are. There's still a heaviness that I feel like can't be ignored, so I wanted to bring that up because you can't just talk about doing the work and addressing your emotional influences without mentioning one of the biggest influences. And I don't know, dying is something we don't really talk about, but that is honestly one of the biggest things that motivates me in life to actually be true to myself and to go after things, is because we are not guaranteed another day. Anything can happen. Life is fragile and you just never know. So you got to do what you want to do now. You got to put in the time when you have it. So it doesn't hurt to remind yourself of that. And it's only through acknowledging, you know, these dark moments and these dark thoughts and heavy emotions that we can appreciate the light. As corny as that sounds, it's true. On a physical level and a metaphysical level, I think. And that is balance also. Recognition of the duality of dark and light, accepting the ebb and flow of life, riding those waves, coming back around to what I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, and avoid getting caught up in a current that takes you under or further out of your way. And that's also preparation for the Reed Moon, which was getting us ready for Sagittarius season, which is relating to expanding, growth, manifesting, all that fun stuff. And I'm going to just stop there so we can discuss that in the next episode. And yeah, so welcome back. I feel a little weird in this spot, but got through it. New things are sometimes uncomfortable, but that is how we grow. So thanks for joining me for another episode, and I will see you guys for the next one.